Discover the incredible truth: 7 life-changing secrets of surviving a night in a freezing Midwest town. Jake felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. Standing in his small auto shop, the winter chill seeped through the cracks, mirroring the anxiety gnawing at his insides. The holidays were creeping closer, and all he could think about was the tree Ellie and Noah deserved, the lights that would shine brightly on their faces, the unwrapped gifts that he wished he could give them. But the reality was harsh. Bills piled up, and the wealthier folks down the street only saw his worn-out shop as a backdrop to their lives. One evening, as snowflakes drifted lazily outside, he volunteered at the local community center, slinging turkey and mashed potatoes to families, all too familiar with struggle. The laughter and warmth in the room felt like a salve to his worries. But as powerful gusts rattled the windows, disaster struck. A snowstorm raged and knocked out the power. Darkness engulfed the center, and panic flared and the warm hearts turned cold. In that moment, responsibility filled Jake's chest. He couldn't just stand there. He grabbed Mr. Thompson, the town's grizzled veteran, and together, they rounded up volunteers. A small army against Mother Nature. Out they went into the blizzard, driven by hope. Each gust of wind howled like ghosts of the past, reminding them of sacrifices made and friends lost. The cold cut deep, but so did the stories of those who braved this icy maelstrom alongside them. As they traipsed through the snow, the encounters they had were raw. Some families exchanged hugs, realizing they weren't alone after all. Others stood on the brink of heartbreak, grievances finally spilled over like a pot boiling on a hot stove. Jake felt the tension thread through the group, a mix of despair and resilience, anger and understanding. He'd always been the quiet type, but as he watched their vulnerability tenfold, something stirred within him. He found his voice. "Look, we're all in this together. Together, we can make a difference," he encouraged, igniting an inner fire. His words echoed in the freezing night, and suddenly, warmth surged back into the gathered crowd, smiles breaking through frozen faces. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." But just as hope blossomed, a sharp twist of fate hit. In the midst of their newfound unity, Jake stumbled upon a secret hidden in the heart of the storm. It threatened to unravel everything he thought he understood about his neighbors, the very people he was trying to hold together. As he stood in the shadows of their fears and divisions, a chilling realization coursed through him. Would they rise above this revelation or crumble beneath the weight of their truths? Jake's heart raced. They had a choice to make as the storm howled, and he wondered, could they truly warm one another's hearts against the fierce chill of doubt? The howling wind seemed to breathe life into the secrets cocooned within the darkness. Jake turned to Mr. Thompson, who was surveying the group with a furrowed brow. "What do we do now?" Jake asked, his voice shaking a bit. The old veteran's eyes flickered with uncertainty, a sight Jake never thought he'd witness. "We face whatever's out there together," Mr. Thompson replied, rallying the volunteers with the authority of a man who had seen too much. As if following some secret code, the group shifted, clustering closer, desperation mingling with determination. Every face glowed with flickering candlelight, shadows casting tails onto the snow. Jake took stock of those around him. There was Clara, a single mother trying to keep her 2 kids warm, the Deans, whose laughter had often filled the shop while they waited for a car, and even old Miss Anderson from down the street, known for her sour demeanor but who wore a worried frown tonight. "What do you think we've been hiding from each other?" Jake asked, letting out a breath as he tried to unravel the tension swirling around them. "These secrets, they're holding us back." As he spoke, an air of realization hung heavy. People exchanged uneasy glances, as if they touched on a bubbling pot of emotions simmering beneath their surfaces. The weight of it was palpable. For a moment, silence fell, a blanket over existence, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The first one to speak was Clara. "I've been too proud to ask for help." Her voice quivered, cracking open the dam. "Every month, I hope I can manage, but it's getting overwhelming." She looked down at her feet, shame intermingling with relief. "I thought my family was the only one struggling," chimed in Mr. Dean. "I never wanted anyone to know." "I didn't want to burden you all." One by one, secrets poured out, each voice blooming against the night's chill. Old sorrows washed over the group's sickness, job loss, and the haunting specter of loneliness danced like specters amongst them. With each confession, Jake felt the ice thaw, not just outside in the blizzard, but within the hearts that had felt fractured. "Thank you for sharing," Jake urged, feeling these truths bound them in an unexpected way. "We're stronger together, and I promise you, no one has to face this alone anymore." With those words, something vital shifted. They began to talk openly, forming a plan. Lights or no lights, they'd share resources, lend hands, find a way through the chaos outside. Fire flickered in their eyes, and though the wind howled louder, almost like a final warning, they felt emboldened. As morning approached, dawn began to pulse faintly on the horizon, casting a pale glow on the snow. But deep down, Jake knew the battle wasn't over. More revelations loomed ahead, more truths to confront, some buried deeper than he'd realized. And then came the blood-curdling scream that shattered the fragile unity they'd built. It echoed through the streets, a cry that sent shivers down their spines and stole the warm glow of hope they had just kindled. "What was that?" Clara gasped, eyes wide in fright. Jake's heart raced again as he turned in the direction of the sound, fear mingling with concern. They had faced down the storm, but now an even darker force loomed. Would assurance hold strong against whatever lay ahead? He took a deep breath. They had to stay together. But in this frozen world where shadows lurked in the day, first light might reveal more than they bargained for. Jake's heart pounded as the echo of the scream faded into the howling wind. The warmth of their earlier conversations was suddenly replaced by an icy grip of fear. Clara clutched her children tightly, her eyes wide with terror, and Mr. Thompson stepped forward, embodying the resolute leader he had always been. "We can't stay here like sitting ducks," he said. "We need to check it out." A collective shudder rippled through the group, but nobody argued. They had found strength in vulnerability. They needed that strength now more than ever. Instinctively, Jake reached for the lantern, its warm glow flickering uncertainly. He'd never felt more like a child searching for safety under the covers, yet he flicked it on, illuminating the faces of those around him, faces now etched with resolve. "Who's with me?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. A few advanced forward, Clara among them. "I can't let my kids be scared. We need to know what's out there." Her voice was fierce, a blend of courage and fear that resonated with Jake. The Deans joined them too, their usual joviality replaced with solemn determination. As they stepped outside, the howling wind whipped at their faces. Each step seemed heavier, the snow crunching underfoot like breaking glass. They formed a line, lanterns held high, casting trembling shadows on the homes around them. The scream had come from the direction of the park, where ancient trees stood like silent sentinels. The night felt darker than it had moments before, a thick blanket of apprehension settling over them. The shadows shifted as if alive, and with every gust, Jake felt the weight of unseen eyes watching. He could almost hear his heartbeat growing louder, faster. Then, as they neared the park entrance, they saw it, a figure crouched in the snow, shaking violently. It was a young man, his breath seen in clouds, his face gaunt with fear. "Help me!" he gasped, eyes wide like saucers. The group froze. It was an unexpected twist in the night's unraveling tale. "What happened to you?" Jake asked, stepping closer, the beacon of the lantern illuminating the desperate face before him. "I didn't mean to," the man cried, tears mingling with the snow. "I was just looking for shelter. I heard something." Mr. Thompson held up a hand, stilling Jake's advance. "Wait. We need to be careful. This could be a trap." Before Jake could protest, a loud crash echoed through the park, shaking the very ground beneath them. The man in the snow fell silent, eyes darting toward the sound, terror igniting brightly within them. Jake felt the tightening in his chest, an instinctual alarm ringing out. "What was that?" Clara whispered, clutching her children tighter, her voice trembling. Jake had no answer. An unsettling dread filled the air, a chilling reminder of the shadows lurking just beyond the reach of their flickering lights. They had come together to face the unknown, but now the unknown was upon them, and there was no escaping it. "Back to the house," Mr. Thompson ordered, trying to regain control over their scattered nerves. But as they turned to flee, the ground shook again, and something broke through the stark silence, the distant howl of a beast, filled with hunger and desperation. A rush of adrenaline surged through Jake. He had intended to unite them. Now, survival was their only language. Desperation carved itself into his heart, but he pushed forward. "Stick together!" he shouted, urging them to move faster. But as they raced back, a chilling realization gnawed at Jake's mind. The scream that had summoned them from the firelight was just the beginning. What else lay waiting in the dark beyond the flicker of their lanterns? The cold air sliced through Jake's lungs as he sprinted back towards the house, every instinct screaming to flee the park. He could hear the frantic breaths of his neighbors behind him, Clara trying to calm her children, Mr. Thompson barking orders, and the Deans, their boots crunching through the snow like a steady drumbeat. "Keep moving! Don't look back!" Mr. Thompson shouted, his voice barely piercing through the wind. The authoritative tone carried a note of fear that made Jake's heart race even faster. The lantern flickered wildly, casting erratic shadows that danced ominously on the ground. With each breath, Jake fought the instinct to turn and see what lurked behind them, afraid that the moment he looked back was the moment he'd be swallowed whole by whatever haunted the night. They approached the porch, the familiar outline of their home rising like a fortress against the dark. Jake reached the door first, yanking it open with a forceful shove that echoed inside. "Get in!" he urged, shoving everyone through, his eyes darting around for threats. Once they were all inside and Clara quickly shut the door behind them, Jake fumbled for the lock, locking it with shaking hands. Breathlessly he stepped back, scanning their faces, searching for reassurance. But the fear plastered on every expression made his stomach tighten. What was that out there?" Clara finally asked, her voice a shaky whisper. She gathered her children to her, her protective instincts surging through the air like energy. "I don't know," Jake admitted, still panting. "But I think we should." The shriek of wind was suddenly drowned by a thud that echoed against the side of the sturdy wooden house. It jolted them all into silence. They all stared at the door, breaths held. Jake's heart drummed a frantic beat as he calculated their options. They were safe inside, but for how long? Mr. Thompson edged forward, placing a hand against the door as if somehow it would grant him the knowledge of whatever lay outside. "We need to get a grip. We can't let panic take hold." "Panic?" Clara replied incredulously. "You think we should just leave it?" She leaned closer to him, anger and fear merging in her voice. "That thing is out there, and what if— Look!" Jake interjected, pointing to the windows. The lantern light cast shadows against the frost-covered glass, and someone or something moved just beyond their sight. The outline was monstrous, shifting and shaking as it lumbered through the park, the earlier howl rushing back into focus. "Stay quiet," Mr. Thompson hissed, raising a finger to his lips. They could all hear it, a low growl vibrating through the silence, sending a shiver down Jake's spine. What had they awoken? Out of the corner of his eye, Jake noticed Clara's children huddled together behind her, wide-eyed and trembling, their innocence shattered by the fear of the unknown. Anguish clawed at his heart. They deserved a peaceful night, not this nightmare. "We can't just stare at the door," Jake said, the desperate need to take action swelling within him. "If we want to protect them, we have to figure out what we're dealing with." As Jake grabbed the lantern, Mr. Thompson threw him an incredulous look. "Wait. You can't be serious. There has to be a way to find out more. We can't be paralyzed by fear when we have children here." Clara's eyes flared with sudden understanding. "If we don't know what we're up against, how can we defend our families?" "We stay close, we stay together," Jake said, met with reluctant nods, determination mingling with fear. As they prepared to step out once more, A piercing howl rose in the distance, one that demanded their attention. A reminder that they were too far gone to retreat now. With their hearts synced to the rhythm of impending danger, Jake realized whatever awaited them in the dark wasn't just a threat to survive, it was something far more sinister. And as they drew closer to the truth, one question echoed louder than any howl. What did this night intend for them? As the lantern flickered in their grasp, Jake knew one thing: the next choice they made could alter everything. The door creaked open slowly, the chill of the night creeping into the warmth they had clung to moments ago. Jake led the group out onto the porch, the lantern casting a small haven of light amidst the darkness that pressed against them like a thick blanket. Each step felt heavy, a mix of fear and resolve pulling at his legs. "Stick together," he whispered, his voice firm but soft. He could feel Clara's eyes on him, searching. He wasn't sure what he was leading them into, but he couldn't let panic override his instincts. They moved as one, stepping into the deep snow with careful precision. Each crunch echoed like a warning bell, but there was little choice. They had to confront the unknown. Shadows danced all around them, twisting into shapes that felt hostile, alive. "What if it comes back?" one of Clara's children asked, clutching her mother's leg tightly. His heart twisted at her terror, but he maintained his calm. "We'll be all right," Clara assured her, her voice trembling yet steady, a lifeline in the storm. "Jake is here. He'll keep us safe." He felt the weight of her words like a mantle on his shoulders. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about them, about every child standing in the dark, caught between nightmares and reality. As they tread cautiously toward the edge of the park, a low growl reverberated through the trees, sending vibrations through the wooden beams of their home. A cold shiver ran down Jake's spine. The sound was unlike anything he had ever heard, raw and primal, a warning that resonated deep within him. "What if it's not alone?" whispered Mr. Thompson, his voice barely audible, almost lost in the breeze. Jake's heart raced as images of unseen threats flickered through his mind like a film reel gone chaotic. He aimed the lantern's light at the swirling shadows, desperately waiting for illumination that would reveal the truth. What were they up against? A sudden movement in the distance made him freeze. He squinted hard, peering past the flickering light. Something large and dark shifted between the trees, hulking yet nimble. It wasn't just an animal. It felt more like a presence, a being that watched them as they watched it. "Back to the house. Now!" he commanded, pulling his group into motion. The faint glimmer of their home became a beacon, a symbol of safety amidst the growing horror. As they rounded the porch, the wind howled louder, like it was warning them to retreat, to hide from what was unleashed. Jake shoved against the door again, slamming it closed behind them. The sound of the wind was different now, almost mournful, as if it lamented their decision to return. "Did you see it?" Clara's voice was thin, her eyes wide with awe mingled with fear. "I saw something," Jake replied, though uncertainty hummed in his chest. "But I don't know what, or if there's more." "We need a plan," Mr. Thompson insisted, pacing the floor as the shadows inside the room shifted. "We can't just wait. We need to understand what we're dealing with." "But how?" Clara burst out, desperation creeping into her voice. "We don't even know what it is. Or how many there are." A heavy silence fell over the group. Eyes darted from one person to another, all of them aware that the night was far from over. They stepped into a world of unknowns, and whatever lurked outside was clearly prepared to meet them. Jake felt the cold sweat on his forehead, the boundaries of bravery and recklessness blurring. This was a moment they'd remember forever if they survived it. There had to be answers, clues buried somewhere in their small town's history. "Tomorrow," he breathed, thoughts racing, "we'll search for anything that might explain this, whatever it is." The group unified around him, and in that moment, together they drew strength from each other, warmth unlike the chill surrounding them. The wind howled again, a mournful sound that filled the silence left by their determination. Jake stood at the window, gazing out at the numbing night, sensing that they were not alone. Whatever waited outside was a reminder of a darker truth. As thoughts of the hunt tomorrow filled his mind, a dread mingled with hope. Each revelation would bring them closer to understanding their night, a night that was destined to change everything. Would the truth they sought be their salvation or their doom? The morning light broke through the windows, casting harsh shadows across the living room. Jake stirred from a restless sleep, his mind still tangled in the terror of the previous night. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes, pushing away the remnants of nightmares that felt all too real. "Jake, are you okay?" Clara's voice pulled him from his thoughts. She stood in the doorway, her face pale but resolute. The children were unusually quiet behind her, eyes wide and uncertain. "Yeah, just thinking," he replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "We need to get moving," Mr. Thompson interjected, his mind already racing ahead. "First things first. We have to check the surrounding area. If there's anything out there, we can't be blind to it." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of responsibility. Jake felt the eyes of Clara's children on him, and he steeled himself. He might not have the answers, but he did have the resolve to protect them. After a quick breakfast, they suited up in layers against the cold, each one feeling the chill creep deeper into their bones with every passing moment. Jake donned his hat, took a deep breath, and gathered everyone close. "Stay close to me, and be quiet," he instructed. "We don't want to provoke whatever is out there." Clara nodded, but her eyes betrayed her fear. She took her children's hands, giving them a gentle squeeze as they stepped into the world outside, where the snow sparkled menacingly beneath the weak sunlight. Jake led the way down the path, his heart racing with every crunch of snow underfoot. As they approached the edge of the park, he thought back to the massive shadow he'd seen the night before. It loomed large in his mind, eclipsing even the frigid landscape that surrounded them. "Look," Clara whispered, pointing towards a large tree at the park's edge. Jake squinted, and there it was, a set of large tracks, deep impressions in the snow, leading inexplicably into the thicket. "Those are huge," Mr. Thompson noted, crouching down to inspect the prints. "Whatever made these isn't just an animal, it's something else." Jake's chest tightened at the idea. What could leave a trail like that? And why had it come so close? As they continued to survey the area, Clara gasped, pulling her children closer. "Over there." She pointed at a crumpled form near a bush. They all went silent as they approached, instincts screaming that this could be a turning point either toward danger or discovery. When they reached the spot, Jake knelt and froze. It was a tattered piece of fabric, torn and stained, snagged on a branch like a warning. He brushed the snow away to reveal more, an old journal, the cover deep with grime. "This could be important," he murmured, heart pounding. He carefully opened the journal, pages slightly brittle but legible. Scrawled handwriting revealed stories of lost townsfolk and strange happenings, intermingled with sketches of the creature he had glimpsed. Questions filled the air, swirling like the winter wind, choking out the warmth of moments earlier. They were no longer just witnesses. They were participants in a story far larger than them. Jake felt an overwhelming responsibility surge within him. "Now we know something's out there," Mr. Thompson said, a mixture of dread and resolve in his tone. "But what do we do with that information?" Before Jake could answer, the wind shifted, and they all felt it, an unsettling presence, an instinct that made the hair on their necks stand on end. The atmosphere was electric. "Get back to the house!" Jake shouted, turning to run. They stumbled back through the snow, hearts racing, the shadows of the trees curling around them like fingers seeking to hold them back. What else lay hidden in the pages of the journal? And would they survive long enough to unlock its secrets? Each moment felt urgent, a reminder that they were racing against time as the hunt began anew. The sound of their hurried breaths filled the cold air, echoing off the trees as Jake led the frantic charge back to the house. Snow sprayed up around them, droplets glistening in the sunlight as they pushed hard against the weight of their fears. Jake's mind whirled with questions. What had they stumbled upon? Was the creature truly out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? They reached the porch, panting and wide-eyed. Clara swept her children inside, her protective instincts kicking in full force. She turned back, scanning the perimeter as if expecting to see the creature emerge from the woods at any second. "Are we safe here, Jake?" she asked, her voice trembling. I don't know, he admitted, urgency eating at him. We have to close the window and lock every door. The thought of being exposed made his pulse quicken, but they had no choice. Their sanctuary was at stake. As they sealed the house, a tense hush settled in. The world outside felt distant, muffled by the walls that now served as their only barrier against the unseen threat. Jake rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the heaviness of responsibility press on him. Every moment counted. What do we do next? Clara whispered, glancing toward her children, who had snuggled together on the couch, wide eyes reflecting their fear. Jake went back to the journal, feeling the weight of its pages like a stone in his hands. We need to figure this out. There might be clues about the creature, something we can use. He opened it up again, and the flicker of the fireplace cast light on worn leather as he scanned the notes. Read this, he said, pointing at one of the sketches. The author drew something similar to what I saw. It talks about whispers in the woods and people going missing. It warns about being watched. His heart sank as he continued, they say to never remain in one place for too long. It senses your fear. Mr. Thompson looked pointedly at Jake. Does that mean we can't just wait this out? Jake nodded, feeling the weight of the decision looming ahead. If it's hunting us, we have to keep moving. We can't become easy targets. Where do we go? Clara asked, fear etched on her face. The roads are blocked and I don't know if we could even make it back to town. Suddenly, the wind howled outside, shaking the windows as if to punctuate their despair. The children began to whimper softly, and Clara wrapped them tighter in her arms. Okay, let us think, Jake said, but his own voice felt shaky. We have to trust that this journal can guide us. There's talk of a cabin nearby, a safe house if they made it there, maybe we can too. Are you sure? Clara asked, doubt tainting her tone. What if it gets us before we even get there? Then we do what we have to do to survive, he whispered fiercely, trying to ignite some courage within their hearts. The children looked up at him, eyes bright with hope and fear intertwined. He knew they were all relying on him now, and every ounce of his being screamed to not let them down. Jake peered out the window at the thickening clouds. The darkness was creeping in, shadows growing longer, hiding secrets just out of sight. I'll go first, Jake asserted, the adrenaline already pumping in his veins. If I scout the way and it's clear, I'll signal for you to follow. Jake, be careful, Clara urged, worry knitting her brow. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. I will, he promised. As he turned to grab his coat, the thump of something distant resonated behind them. A gut-wrenching growl murmured through the air, sending chills down Jake's spine. They weren't alone anymore. The decision to leave felt heavier now than before. Would they escape, or would the creature strike first? As anxiety tightened its grip, Jake knew they stood at the brink of something monumental. Would they find the cabin and safety, or was the hunt already beginning? He steeled himself, heart racing. It was time to face the darkness. Jake stepped onto the porch, the chill biting at his skin as he glanced back at Clara and the kids. He crossed his arms, trying to still the tremor in his hands. The growl echoed again, closer this time. Panic and determination wrestled within him, a tug of war that threatened to break him. You've got this, Jake, he murmured to himself, though the words felt inadequate against the weight of uncertainty. Each step he took away from the warmth of the house felt like a betrayal to the very people he wanted to protect. He moved carefully, the snow crunching underfoot. All his senses were on alert. The wind whipped through the trees, carrying ghostly whispers that set his nerves on edge. Did they sound like voices? He shook his head, trying to clear his mind. The path was shrouded in twilight, thick clouds engulfing the sun. He recalled the journal's warnings about the darkness, and how it awakened what lay unseen. He stopped for a moment, standing still, straining to hear any sign of movement. The wind seemed to dance malevolently around him, heightening his anxiety. Then, a movement caught his eye. A shadow flickered between two trees further down the path. His heart raced. Was that the creature? He squinted into the growing gloom, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He needed to know if he could continue. Okay, he whispered to himself, just a little closer. Jake took a tentative step, whispering an internal prayer that his family was safe, that he'd return to them. As he drew near the spot where he thought he had seen the shadow, he crouched low, feeling the biting cold seep into his clothes. The clearing was vast and empty. His breath fogged in the air as his heart beat loudly in his ears. He was only a few yards from the tree when he spotted an imprint in the snow, large and deep, far too big for any animal he recognized. Jake's stomach dropped. It shouldn't have been here. Panic set in. What if it was already tracking him? Forcing himself to focus, he studied the tracks, trying to identify what direction it had gone. Just then, a rustling noise pulled his attention. It was faint, but it was there, drawing nearer. His stomach churned, and he felt a surge of cold fear grip him. Every instinct screamed at him to run back, abandon the search, but if he left without confirming, he could pave the way for disaster. Clenching his fists, he decided to take one more calculated step. Moving quietly, he pushed forward, every brush of wind against his skin feeling like a warning. The shadows deepened, swallowing the light as thick clouds rolled overhead. Then, without warning, the haunting growl erupted again, closer now, and this time it came from behind him. A primal fear surged through Jake, driving him to dart into the underbrush, pushing his body to respond before his thoughts could weigh him down. Heart racing, he ducked low and pressed forward, hoping to circle around whatever was stalking him. Suddenly, he stumbled upon a broken-down hunter's shack, half buried under layers of snow. It was small and dark, but it could provide cover. He made his decision and slipped inside, breath hitching as he shut the door behind him. The quiet inside was stifling, the only sound his racing heart. He leaned against the wall, slowly working to regain his breath as the growling continued outside, circling the shack like a predator playing with its prey. "Come on, Jake," he muttered, trying to calm himself, "you need to find a way to get back to them." He thought of Clara's worried face and the little ones huddled on the couch. They were counting on him. As he peered out through a cracked window, his heart sank at the sight of a shadow moving toward the door, the growl getting louder, more menacing. Jake was trapped. Just then, a thought struck him. There had to be some hint in the journal he could use. Glancing around, he fished for it, and found a scrap of page tucked inside his coat pocket. He held it tight. What if there was a strategy mentioned for moments like this? Would the journal hold secrets he hadn't noticed before? As the growl crescendoed to a frightening pitch, Jake realized the danger wasn't just outside, it lingered within his very own thoughts. Could he muster the courage to fight back? What he did next could save his family, or doom them all. Jake's heart thundered in his chest. Would he uncover the knowledge he needed, or was he already too late? Jake's fingers trembled as he smoothed out the scrap of paper. There was barely enough light filtering through the cracks in the shack to make out the scribbled handwriting. His heart raced, not just from the growl echoing outside but from the weight of what he might find within these words. Would he unearth something that could help him survive the night? He read quickly, his eyes darting back and forth, absorbing every detail like a thirsty man in the desert. The notes spoke of old folklore, ancient methods of warding off dark spirits that thrived off fear and despair. Somewhere in the whirlwind of myths, he found mention of using sound to confront these creatures. Instinctively, he pressed his ear against the wall, listening intently to the growl that wrapped around the shack. The thud-thud of his own heartbeat almost drowned it out. Could he make a sound loud enough to challenge the creature outside? Jake's mind raced as he recalled the stories of brave souls using their voices as shields during moments of terror. Singing. He needed to belt out a song, something alive and full of hope, to pierce through the thick veil of darkness. Okay. He took a deep breath and placed his hands over his ears, uncertain how his voice would hold up against the beast's growl. You can do this. He chose an old tune from his childhood, something that Clara used to sing to the kids at bedtime. It wasn't going to win any awards, but it was filled with warmth and light, just what he needed now. Jake closed his eyes and began to hum softly, letting the sound bounce around the insides of the shack. At first, it felt silly, vulnerable, but as he pressed on, he began to feel a sense of purpose igniting within him. He sang louder, matching each pulse of the growl with determination. The shadows seemed to recoil, shifting outside the shack as if startled by his defiance. The growl waned slightly, a hesitance echoing back into the stillness. Jake clung to that moment. "Come on, let us do this," he pushed himself, willing his voice to rise. He poured every ounce of hope into the words. Memories of his family gathered, filling the confines of the shack with light as he sang louder still. The growl faltered, shifting from fierce to almost perplexed. Jake could hear it now, and uncertainty crept into the creature's growls, echoing like it was questioning the strength rallying against it. Outside, the shadow loomed closer, but Jake continued. He felt the warmth of his love for Clara and the kids wrapping around him, creating an invisible barrier against the darkness. With every note, he reaffirmed their bond, his resolve, and his determination to fight. Then, as he reached the final chorus, something shifted in the air. The growl stopped abruptly, replaced by a chilling silence. Heart racing, he wondered, had his song worked? Suddenly, he heard the sound of footsteps outside the shack. Not the growling creature, but something else, a soft, almost cautious tread. Jake's gut twisted, fear mingling with curiosity. Could it be a friend, or was this a new trick from the darkness? He swallowed hard, torn between horror and hope. What if this was the moment he would have to truly face the terror that haunted him? "Please," he whispered, gripping the journal tighter. The door creaked slowly, and Jake steadied himself for whatever awaited him. Would he find safety or face his worst nightmare? What would happen next could change everything for him and his family. Would they be brought closer to safety? He couldn't help but wonder. As the door cracked open, was it hope or despair waiting on the other side? The door opened slowly, revealing a figure outlined in the waning light. Jake squinted through the dimness, heart pounding as he braced for anything. "Clara?" he breathed, fear clashing with hope. The figure took a tentative step forward, and it was Clara, breathless and wide-eyed. "Jake, we heard your voice," she exclaimed, relief flooding her expression. "You were singing. We've been looking for you." Jake blinked in disbelief and surged forward, wrapping her in a tight hug, feeling the warmth of her body against the biting cold that had seeped into him. "I thought you," words caught in his throat. He had feared for their safety, imagined them waiting for him in the shadows of the house, but here she was, alive and glowing with determination. "Mr. Thompson said we had to find you." The kids were so scared. "I didn't know what to do." Her brow furrowed in worry, but there was a fire in her eyes. "When I heard you singing, I just felt something. It was like you were summoning light into the dark." The memories of fear melted in that moment, replaced by something powerful. "I was hoping to keep us safe," he admitted, glancing back at the darkened path leading into the woods, the growls throbbing at the edge of awareness. "But I didn't know if it would work." "It did," Clara replied, determination glowing in her voice. "We need to go back together." Just then, the shadows at the edge of the woods began to shift again, as if the creature was roused by the sound of their voices. Jake took a step back instinctively, but Clara took his hand. "We can't wait here. We have to figure out what this is, and we have to do it now." With renewed purpose, Jake nodded, steadied by Clara's resolve. Together, they stepped outside of the shack. Clara led the way, shoulders squared determinedly, and Jake felt emboldened. As they reached the edge of the snow-drifted path, the growls had grown faint, reluctant, almost tentative. "It sounds distant," Jake whispered, peering into the forest. "What if we could draw it back out, make it reveal itself?" "Yeah," Clara agreed, her voice filled with purpose. "Maybe it's more afraid of us than we think." She lifted a small branch and snapped it together rhythmically, creating a beat. "That's it." Jake grinned, feeling adrenaline surge through him again. "We can make it dance with our voices. We'll be a force together." The children, following behind them, caught on and began to hum, their innocence raising the volume of hope. "To the cabin!" Jake called, the sound of their voices rising above the wind. They formed a circle, chanting the old tune Jake had learned, their music reverberating against the stark silence. As they made their way through the snow, the growls returned, deep and low, stirring the energy around them. Jake could feel the ground tremble slightly, but the warmth of the circle steadied him. Together, they shaped a barrier of sound, fending off the shadows lurking just beyond their sight. Suddenly, a large figure burst through the trees, its outline distinct in the moonlight, a shadow of an ancient hunter, sleek and powerful. Jake's heart raced. But this time, instead of fear, tears of joy filled his eyes. "Fight for our happiness!" he bellowed, this spell of sound echoing through the night. The creature paused, its growl turning into a contemplative rumble. It took a step back, cautious. The children's voices rose, harmonizing beautifully with Clara's strong notes. The eerie growls shifted, resembling something softer, something like curiosity rather than malice. "I think it's listening!" Clara shouted, filling the air with every ounce of energy she had left. In that breathtaking moment, something profound shifted within Jake. They weren't just fending off a beast. They were drawing the community together as a family. They were reclaiming their fears as a united force, transforming each sorrow into collective strength. Jake looked around at the faces of the people gathered, illuminated by purpose. "No more hiding," he urged. "Let it know we are not afraid. We stand together." As the harmony soared, the figure began to withdraw. Slowly, unsure, as though it was perceiving a new path, a flicker of warmth breaking through the cold veil it had inhabited. Finally, the growl faded into the night, replaced by a windswept whisper. The once harrowing presence dissipated in a shroud of quiet. The night felt lighter, filled with the promise of hope, woven through laughter and tears. In the distance, the cabin beckoned, a sanctuary wrapped in the arms of a community reborn. With hearts intertwined, they stepped forward, confident in their unity. Hope filled the air like the sweet scent of pine. That night would forever be etched in their hearts, not as a terrifying balloon of shadows, but as a celebration of resilience. They had embraced their fears and transformed them into something beautiful. And so, Jake, Clara, and the children marched onward into the night, the journey ahead lit by the certainty that together, they could face any darkness that dared to follow them. Now, it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help fellow viewers find this journey. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. What did it mean for you? And for the love of community, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.